Welcome to New York's #2 sports show. The Rangers lose in overtime to the Utah Mammoth by a final score of 3-2. And not only is the result not what you want, but Igor Shesterkin leaves the game in the first period with a lower body injury, and it did not look good. It looked like it was of the non-contact variety. So not expecting that timeline for injury to be too great. I mean, you know, I think best case scenario, if you remember a few years back, he got hurt in New Jersey and was writhing in pain and kind of a similar looking injury. And he was out for a while, but he wasn't out for a crazy long amount of time. But with where this Ranger team is now, granted, if it is long enough, the Olympic break, could actually be a good thing where he, basically there's no games in February. But still, even if that is like a best case scenario, you still have a full slate of games in January. So, for a team that really, even at full strength, I don't really believe this is a playoff team. The injuries just keep on coming, and big ones too, at different times. They never seem to be fully healthy, but I also think that's a bit of an excuse. It just doesn't help an already mediocre team. Right. And so that's a big, big storyline. Probably the biggest one is that Shesterkin is injured. Now, so many times we've seen him in pain and in game and has stayed in the game and he's been fine. Like I said, I brought up that Devils example from a few years ago where it ended up kind of being a pleasant surprise based on how bad it had looked then. And so maybe there's a precedent here where, I don't know, maybe it won't be some season-ending injury, but I think it has to be on the table again, based on the fact that JJ Peterka really didn't make much contact with Igor Shesterkin. Barely. It was the other leg that, was the one that was hurt. And it was the left leg that he really had trouble putting any weight on. But as far as the game itself goes, look, you kind of figured that they weren't going to be able to, use the Winter Classic as any sort of springboard. That was wishful thinking. And this is just back to reality. And the Rangers have not played well at home. They have really, to me, just not been that good in general. Yes, road record is very impressive. But now at home, they are, 5-10-4. They haven't won a regulation home game since, I believe, late-ish November. I think November 24th versus the St. Louis Blues. All year, the Rangers have not won consecutive games at home. And then as far as other sort of streaks that took a little bit of a hit tonight was scoring first. When they score first, they're now 16-2-2. When they score at least 2 goals, they're now 19-4-5. And then when they're leading after 2, they're now 10-0-3. So it doesn't hit the regulation loss category, so it's not, overly crazy. But those are stats that will get worse just naturally. Especially the 2-goal stat and the scoring first stat. The one leading after 2, that one, that's a different story. But, Rangers overall now 20-18-6, continue to be, last in the conference as far as points percentage goes. And that's kind of been the case for a bit now. And look, like for me, I've been hinting at it as far as, when is going to be the point for me when I start to kind of prefer losses and feel as if that's, better for the long-term future of this team. And I think we're getting close, especially if Shesterkin is going to be out for a significant amount of time. Again, still rooting for him, but it's a tough spot right now. Rangers are kind of in no man's land where, it's not like, I don't know, they're not exactly like in top 5 pick territory, but it can certainly get there. It really can with a trade of Panarin and this and that. But just the overall outlook of the team is a bit bleak, no question, right? Forgetting about all that stuff. And some curious, really one specific, very curious decision made by Mike Sullivan and company. So let's talk about that. Matthew Robertson was a healthy scratch in favor of Urho Vakanainen. It's very odd. And I have to think there's something else in play here, more than meets the eye. Because Robertson played the most minutes of anyone in the Winter Classic and didn't seem like, I don't recall him playing poorly. I think this is partially them wanting to have Vakanainen back in the lineup because he hasn't played in a while. He had made a comment. He didn't make Team Finland, which is kind of embarrassing considering the lack of NHL finished defensemen. All Vakanainen made the Four Nations squad last season, but he did not make the Finland Olympic team. He had made a comment though, that he hadn't been playing that much this year, which was a true statement, but it almost felt like it was a little bit of a shot at, the Rangers for him not playing. Maybe it wasn't, but I don't know. Like, the way that they use Vakanainen would suggest that they don't trust him more than Robertson. Like when Robertson's in, like Vakanainen played a little more than 14 minutes in this game. Matthew Robertson is typically playing well more than that. So I don't know. I think it has more to somehow do with Vakanainen. I don't know if there's some sort of showcasing going on some level somewhere, right? I mean, I'm just trying to search for answers because it doesn't make sense. And I truly don't believe they did it in the form of we think this gives us a better chance to win. There was like this could have been a jury decision. I don't know exactly why this was done, but it honestly did cost them. It really, really did. I mean, the game tying goal, Urho Vakanainen is a major part of why that goal occurs for Utah. The other decision made it forward, I have less of a problem with. Like, I don't know why it had to be done, but Anton Bleed was in and making his Ranger debut this season. He played for the Rangers. He's been in the organization now for a few years. I had one game played in the 23-24 season. So now this is his second game as a Ranger. Basically was on the Bruins for a very long time and then went to Colorado, and the Rangers acquired him from Colorado a little bit before the 2023 trade deadline. So that, whatever, like that one, Braun hasn't been great. I'd rather Braun be in there, honestly, just to kind of see what a younger player can do, but fine. Not going to get a big deal about that. But yeah, going back to the Robertson thing, what's even stranger is like, this was coming off of a win. You rarely see lineups change, everything being equal. Obviously, when players come back from injury, it's a different story, but usually the lineup stays the same. Like, this would have been strange to me, even if the Rangers were coming off of a loss. It makes it even more odd that they were coming off of a resounding win. So, I don't know. Maybe this will make more sense in due time. So, the defensive pairs were what you'd expect. Vakanainen with Schneider, Susu with Borgen, and Gavrikov with Fox. We'll discuss some individual performances without me having to say it now as we go through the game. And the forwards, look, it's a pretty unimpressive unit. It just is. Where Justin Dowling's still in the lineup, he plays a role as with Vakanainen in that tying Mammoth goal in the third period. Just on paper, it's really shitty. And I think that JT Miller probably isn't too far away from returning. I feel like that could be in the offing within the next game or two is kind of the feel I'm getting there. And then as far as Noah Laba, I think he'll be back sooner than later. Like, I think, I think like maybe a week to 2 weeks is just kind of the gut feel. I think he'll be back solidly well before the Olympic break is the feeling. And again, for Connor Sherry, they haven't elaborated further, but that feels like a very long-term sort of injury, just kind of the vibe you get there. But yeah, not much else to kind of discuss as far as from a line standpoint. Look, the thing that also makes this game worse, the power play scored both goals, one of them a 5-on-3. So Adam Fox's presence on the power play itself, I didn't think Fox had a great game in general, but again, just the presence on the power play, it makes a difference for sure. But let's discuss Karel Vejmelka in net for Utah. Mammoth coming off of a beatdown at the hands of the New Jersey Devils. Again, never a great thing. I always say it, and I feel like it proves true a lot. And it's no excuse. I mean, the Rangers were right in this game, but I thought Utah was the better team overall. I thought Utah was the better team in the first period and the third period. The one period the Rangers was better was the second. But in the first, no penalties and no goals. And again, that's kind of a typical Ranger first period where it's extremely low event. I mean, maybe this one wasn't as low event as other first periods for the Rangers. Shots were 12-7 Utah. I don't have much to really expand upon as far as what occurred in the opening frame. But other than, of course, this Shesterkin injury, which occurs with probably around 7-8 minutes left in the first period. And it was a turnover by Lafreniere in the offensive zone, which kind of brings a little bit of transition the other way. Braden Schneider was in the vicinity of Paterka. Again, a pretty innocent looking situation. Now, Utah was crashing the net all night long. I think the Rangers were on throw with that, but I didn't see much pushback. Jonathan Quick provided pushback when the time came. He seems to be one of the most emotional players when he's in there. You don't see much from the rest of the team, which again is a reoccurring issue. But yeah, like this one, look, I don't blame Paterka. A bit of a freak situation, and Igor again, looked like non-contact. He was helped off by Vlad Gavrikov and the trainer, and was really unable to put much weight on it. Shesterkin was kind of banging, I think, with either his glove hand or his blocker, one of them, banging on the ice in the net in pain. And again, we've seen Igor in pain a lot before. And I've been one to say that, hey, there's times when I've kind of accused him of kind of going a little bit overboard. Not to say that he was faking it totally, but there's times when I question it. And the sad reality here was they come out from commercial and it's like, yeah, like, they show him going off and he's done for sure. And I think, unfortunately, for the foreseeable future. So Jonathan Quick comes in. I thought that Jonathan Quick in this game was fine. Didn't love his game against the Capitals last game, but also kind of said I didn't hate a lot of those goals. Jonathan Quick, by and large, has done a very nice job at a backup role. We'll see what he does as a starter. He'll get the bulk of the starts. Not many back-to-backs that I can think of coming up, which kind of works out well. I think the next one might be a couple of weeks from now when they're going on the West Coast. And ironically, one of those games, I believe, is actually against the Kings. So in a weird way, it kind of maybe works for Jonathan Quick if, Shesterkin is out for that long, because I don't think whoever the backup may be, I think they'd be hard-pressed to use that backup. But I guess it depends on how long Shesterkin's out. We don't know yet. But yeah, I thought Quick in this game was fine. I didn't think he was bad. I didn't think he was amazing. I think he, made some good saves when he needed to. And I didn't think the goals allowed were necessarily egregious. And I've been critical of Quick in the past when they have been, but just didn't think that here. Anyway, we go to the second period, and the Rangers took advantage of some power play opportunities. Now, I spoke about Quick getting a roughing penalty. Daniil Boot, he gets the goal interference call, and then Quick gets the roughing minor. Now, originally, the goal interference wasn't called until Quick kind of shoved him, and then they kind of reverted back, and, it's matching minors. Again, like Quick, I feel like he does it. He's a very intense competitor. And I feel like he does it in a way somewhat strategically to kind of get the group going. I think but also I think he is intense as well. So it's 4-on-4, no goals come of it. But then at 7:33, Adam Fox was tripped by Dylan Guenther. I don't know. I thought the call, I thought some of the Ranger penalty, power plays, were not necessarily the greatest calls, but I think the Rangers took advantage of that. But the Rangers score on the power play, and it's the same crew in this game kind of carrying it over from the Florida game, where the same people who are getting points are the same four people. It's basically the four forwards on the number one power play unit, sans Fox. Fox has not, gotten on the score sheet in these last two games. But it ends up being a Lafreniere goal, his 9th goal of the season from Zibanejad and Panarin. Really nice passing play at 8:29 of the second, where a lot of credit goes around to all. Where kind of I think all five touched the puck, but really cross-ice Panarin and Zibanejad and a very quick, decisive pass from Mika to a wide open Lafreniere in front. Pretty picture perfect. You want to keep things more simplistic, but when it works, it works. And right there, Lafreniere makes it 1-0 Rangers. So Zibanejad kind of continuing his point totals, and I guess Panarin to a degree as well. And Lafreniere coming off of the 3-assist game makes it 1-0 Rangers there. But at 12:38, Utah ties it, and it's Dylan Guenther scoring his 21st goal of the season, assisted by Ian Cole. And this was one where the Rangers are doing a line change. So that's the first thing. And it's Panarin and Fox, both of them going up the ice on the right side. I think both deserve blame, but I think Panarin, and it wasn't the only time Panarin would do it. Panarin loses the puck, and Fox is pinching up ice. And so you have kind of a semi breakaway for Guenther, and Quick makes the initial save, and he gets his own rebound and scores as Braden Schneider was too late coming off the bench to get back. Again, Panarin needs to be smart in that situation, and against Adam Fox as well. That cannot be a turnover there. That's easy offense for Utah, and they take advantage of that, playing right into their hands. Makes it 1-1. Then at 15:31, you get two different penalties. Brandon Tanev is called for tripping Artemi Panarin, and Alex Kerfoot is called for slashing Carson Soucy. So the Rangers get a 5-on-3 for 2 minutes. Again, if I'm Utah, I'm pretty frustrated. I don't know that, I don't know. The Tanev one was, to me, a little bit questionable. I feel like Panarin went down easily, but again, not going to complain about it. They get the power play 5-on-3, and they do score on it. And it's Vincent Trocheck, his 10th goal of the season from Panarin and Zibanejad. So 2 assists for Panarin and Zibanejad. And it was a shot by Panarin that was tipped in the net front spot for Vincent Trocheck past Vejmelka. That's how you do it. Again, you take the shot, you have the screen in front, and the deflection helps the Rangers take a 2-1 lead there. And Trocheck even again had another good chance late in the period to make it 3-1. And I say by Vejmelka, who knows? This thing could have been completely different if that goes in. Rangers had a very good second period. We go to the third. Rangers up 2-1. The Rangers have been pretty good in these spots, although not quite as great lately, right? They lost that game at Carolina despite leading after 2. Like, it's been slipping a bit as far as the success when leading after 2 and locking down. Although I would say on the whole on the season, it's been pretty good, even if it hadn't been pretty. No pun intended. But we go to the third, and it is Michael Carcone who ties the game up. Actually, wait a minute. Skipping something. Urho Vakanainen hooks Carcone at 152. Rangers kill it off, though. So again, Vakanainen, a bad penalty. Simply put, like, he was out of position and was forced to hook Carcone. But he gets bailed out. But he wouldn't be bailed out a second time. And the Rangers were bad from the jump in the third period. They would eventually turn things around, but the damage was done as Carcone scores his 8th goal of the season for Marino at 6:15. And this is a poor job by Justin Dowling of not getting the puck in deep. A player that really is not that good, doesn't play that much, was in a spot where you just needed a simplistic dump in, and he fumbles the puck, loses at the neutral zone to Marino, and then Carcone simply beats Vakanainen. And Vakanainen basically, again, he's not fleet of foot, loses positioning, and Carcone goes around quick for the goal to tie it up at 2. Again, I don't understand why Vakanainen is in the lineup. He doesn't deserve to be at all. He should continue to be a healthy scratch. And then, even Dowling, I understand there's a bit of a cap crunch, which is a bit of a joke. I'm pretty sure there is, last I checked, as far as there are some limitations. Not major limitations, but some. But the fact that Justin Dowling is even on this team speaks to just I know there's a lot of injuries. I get it, to the forward group. But, you could go Johnny Brodzinski at center and not totally have to pay the piper for it. So again, it just speaks to a roster that just is not very good. The game is now tied at 2. I would say Utah continued to play well. Then the Rangers eventually, around the midway point of the third, turned things around a little bit. And here was the big missed opportunity. Sean Durzi at 16:46 hooks Mika Zibanejad. And the Rangers had good ozone time on this power play, but didn't really have the shot quality. A lot of passing the puck around, weren't really in great position. So, look, I'm not being critical of the power play. They've been, a bright spot, honestly, the last 3 games. But there's a spot where you could have obviously used the big goal to get you the win. It doesn't happen. And now we go to overtime. And in overtime, they start out with Zibanejad, Panarin, and Gavrikov. It's hard to tell the rhyme or reason behind the starts. Now, I like Gavrikov, but you would think that Fox would have been the one. And again, I didn't love Fox's game. Quite honestly, I didn't think Gavrikov's game was that amazing either in this one. But it's surprising. But anyway, the Rangers gain control of the puck, which is the name of the game in overtime. Zibanejad wins the draw. But then, I don't know why Gavrikov had the puck, but then it goes to Panarin, and Panarin turns it over. It's as if, for some reason, him and Gavrikov are right next to each other in a 3-on-3 when you need space, when space is easy to attain. And for some reason, again, Panarin, as he did in the first goal, turns it over in that front zone on the ultimate game-winning goal. And what happens is Panarin, as we know, is not good in the defensive zone. He ends up colliding with Sean Durzi, which really kind of fucks everything up. And by this happening, it allows Durzi to end up being wide open in front of a quick pass by Nick Schmaltz, and Durzi wins it. At 106, it's his second goal of the season from Schmaltz and Kraus, and Utah wins 3-2 in overtime. So the Mammoths beat the Rangers in regulation in Utah on November 22nd, and they are able to win again, this time in overtime. Same score, 3-2. So yeah, look, for the Rangers, the only shot you have is really going on a roll, and they don't really seem capable of doing that. It's the only chance that they would have, is to reel off win after win after win. And, they have just been kind of mired at playing very, very average. And ultimately, I think we know where this is headed. And I think it has to be. It'd be crazy not to, the Rangers to be in more of a seller's mode. Now, it doesn't mean it's full on sell, but that is where the lean has to be, right? In the sense of an Artemi Panarin, Carson Soucy, like in terms of the unrestricted free agents, that's what it has to be. And that's where I think this is going to be going. So next game is again at home. Rangers get a couple of days off. We'll find out, in due time about Shesterkin and what they are labeling this as. But it'll be a Thursday night game at MSG versus the Buffalo Sabres, who finally their winning streak ends. I think it was a 10-game winning streak, I believe, is where it reached, and they lost. And they will be coming off of a game home against Vancouver, which, is one of the Rangers lost home against Vancouver, but that is one of the, on paper, better matchups in the league these days. And so Buffalo may find their way back on the winning side of things. And yeah, Rangers did go to Buffalo in game 2 of this season and beat them, but things are much, much different than they were then. Buffalo is playing a lot better now, and we'll see what they do coming to Madison Square Garden. But again, Rangers, they can't hold the lead. Going to the third, they eventually lose it in overtime. Final score 3-2 against the Utah Mammoth, but the bigger concern is that Igor Shesterkin leaves the game with a lower body injury, and hopefully he's all right, because if not, an already mediocre Ranger team is going to be in for a much tougher road.